The movements of the elbow. Elbow flexion. The joint action of the elbow as the arm bends. Elbow extension. The joint action of the elbow as the arm straightens. The movements of the knee. Knee flexion. The joint action of the knee as it bends. Knee extension. The joint action of the knee as it straightens. Movements of the ankle. Dorsiflexion. The movement of the ankle as the upper surface or dorsal surface of the foot moves towards the shin. Plantar flexion. The movement of the ankle as the plantar surface or sole of the foot moves downwards. The toes of the foot point away. The movements of the shoulder. Shoulder flexion. The joint action of the shoulder as the arm lifts forward from the shoulder to the front of the body. Shoulder extension. The joint action of the shoulder as the arm moves from the front of the body back to neutral position at the shoulder. Shoulder hyperextension. The joint action of the shoulder as the arm moves behind the body, beyond anatomical or neutral position. Shoulder abduction. The action of the shoulder as the arm moves away from the midline and lifts out to the side of the body. Shoulder adduction. The action of the shoulder as the arm moves back towards the midline of the body. Shoulder horizontal abduction. The joint action of the shoulder that brings arms from midline in front of the chest away from the body. Shoulder horizontal adduction. The joint movement that brings the arms from an extended position towards the midline in front of the body. Movements of the scapula. Scapula elevation. The movement of the scapula as it lifts the shoulder towards the ear. Scapula depression. The scapula moves downwards and drops the shoulder. Scapula adduction. The scapula move towards the midline of the body, as when you squeeze your shoulder blades together. Scapula abduction. The scapula move away from the midline, as when you separate your shoulder blades. Joint actions of the hip. Hip flexion. The movement of the hip as the leg lifts to the front. Hip extension. The leg moves from a flexed position at the hip back to neutral or anatomical position. Hip hyperextension. The leg moves from neutral position at the hip towards the rear of the body. Hip abduction. The leg moves away from the midline of the body. Hip adduction. The leg moves towards the midline of the body. Movements of the vertebral column, the cervical region. Neck and head flexion. May also be called cervical flexion. The head moves forward in a nodding movement. Neck or head extension may also be called cervical extension. The head moves from flexed position back to neutral position. Neck or head hyperextension may also be called cervical hyperextension. The head moves backwards from a neutral position, lifting the chin upwards. Neck or head lateral flexion may also be called cervical lateral flexion. The head moves sideways towards the shoulder. It can either be to right or to left. Head or cervical rotation. The head turns to look over the shoulder. This can also be to right or to left. Movements of the thoracic and lumbar regions of the spine. Spine flexion may also be called trunk flexion. The body bends forward at the spine. Spine extension. The body moves from a flexed position back to a neutral position. Spine hyperextension may also be referred to as lumbar hyperextension. The body moves backwards from anatomical position. Spine lateral flexion may also be referred to as trunk lateral flexion. The body bends sideways. Spine rotation. The body twists from a neutral position to the side. It can be either to the right or to the left. So now that you are familiar with the movements of the main joints, I'd like you to try and identify some specific movements that I will show you next. So have your pen and paper ready and number each movement as it appears. The first movement, name the joint action as the knee straightens. The second movement, what is the joint action as the leg moves back towards the midline? Number 3. Name the joint action as the arm lifts to the front of the body. Number 4. Name the joint action as the arm moves away from the midline of the body. Number 5. Name the joint action as the arm moves from an extended position towards the midline in front of the body. Number 6. What is the joint action as the arm straightens? Number 7. Name the joint action as the scapula moves towards the midline. Number 8. What is the joint action as the body bends forward? Number 9. What is the action as the leg lifts forward to the front of the body? And finally, number 10. What is the action as the toes of the foot move downwards away from the shin? So let's go back over those and let's see how you got on. Number 1 was knee extension. Number 2 was hip adduction. Number 3 was shoulder flexion. Number 4 was shoulder abduction. Number 5, shoulder horizontal adduction. Number 6, elbow extension. Number 7, scapula adduction. Number 8, spine flexion. Number 9, hip flexion. And lastly, number 10, plantar flexion. So well done if you got all of those correct. If not, please review this lesson again until you are happy that you can identify all of the joint movements.